I can't tell you how many people have come to me thinking that they like have to cut out all of these foods and they're freaking out and they're panicking and they're actually coming to me because they want me to create a diet for them based on their IgG test because they're so overwhelmed by it. And I have to be like, okay, we need to talk about what this test actually says because you're going to feel a lot better at the end of our conversation. Part of it is preying on a vulnerable population. Like,
exactly.
People are desperate. They feel like crap. They don't know why. They're having a hard time identifying what is the root cause of why they feel the way they feel. And someone says, why don't we do a food sensitivity test? And they think, oh, it's scientific. It's a blood test. It's going to give me the answers that I so desperately want. And it's a scam.
No, it's true. They're just trying to get money. But it's like, yeah, you have all these people who maybe even they're going through like these bad, feeling terrible for the first time. Like all of a sudden things are changing. They don't know why. So grasping at straws. But if you think, yeah, exactly to your point, like if there's a blood test that can tell you the answers, yes, let's find out. Let's find the cause.
Okay, it's scary story about myself with an IgG test. So they started offering them with naturopaths and stuff like that, and herbalists, because that's a field, when I was in high school, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I was really, really unwell. This was before I got diagnosed with celiac disease. I did an IgG test, cut out so many different foods, and it turned out that it was none of those foods. It was just had celiac disease, and they had to go through the diagnosis for that. But that was like, I feel like doing that test and cutting out all those foods prolonged my diagnosis. And it was just like, it was scary that like there's something else potentially bigger going on.
When you think how many people are going through that, you know, like how many times are there misdiagnosis or you were clutching at other straws when we're not, or our providers are not actually actively seeking the right response or doing the right tests, you know, because this is just easy. It's a quick $500 and there you go. But ultimately, maybe that was an extra 6 months of you not getting the diagnosis you need.
So let's introduce the topic for today.
Woohoo!
Hello, and welcome to the Nutrition Digest podcast. We are your hosts and registered dietitians, Alicia Kugler, Tara Valenti, and Summer Merrick. We are here to dish up the nutrition tea, debunk the myths, inspire, inform, and hopefully entertain. Today, we are talking all about food allergies versus food intolerances versus food sensitivities. We're also going to talk about some of the tests that can be done for each of them and common misunderstandings around these types of tests. So we are breaking down what each of these things actually means, how they show up in your body, what testing is available and what's legit and what is not legit. You might be surprised with one of these. And how to actually identify trigger foods in a way that is evidence-based so that you can start feeling better sooner. Because right now there's a lot of testing being marketed that sounds very scientific, but it actually isn't.
So a lot of people are confused about this. I was confused about this before we were doing research and before becoming a dietitian. It's just a lot of noise out there, just like many things that we see on social media and things that are marketed to us. But one of the things that differentiate food allergies to intolerances and sensitivities is that often the symptoms overlap. Things like bloating, headaches, fatigue, skin issues, those are all symptoms that come up with more than just food allergies or food tolerances or sensitivities. There's also terms that are used interchangeably in popular culture and by people that aren't clear on the difference. So things like a sensitivity, an intolerance, an allergy, they're often used incorrectly to describe what's happening with your food, right? Or what's happening with your reaction to certain foods. So not every reaction to food is an allergy, and not every test is actually testing what it claims to do. So hopefully by listening to this episode, it will provide you with more clarity on what the difference is. And if you are experiencing any of these symptoms, you know which way to go in order to find out what's happening with your body.
Spoiler alert, work with one of us.
Yeah.
And your doctor.
Exactly. This is a great opportunity. Exactly what Tara said. This is exactly a perfect example of how a dietitian can help you. Obviously, you want to work with your medical professional, your care provider as well. But this is another aspect or another avenue of what we work with what we work with as dietitians. I know, Alicia, you have your own experiences with a lot of this, and same, Tara, you too. So not only can we scientifically help you on how to manage this, but we often have our own stuff where we can really relate and understand what you're going through.
Yeah. And we were talking about this a moment ago before we hit record on the podcast, but what we're really doing in helping you with this is eliminating prolonged suffering, because you can dramatically reduce the amount of time that you are trying to put the puzzle pieces together if you're working with someone who has experience and expertise in the field, paired with some testing from your healthcare provider. And that is kind of the key here. If you are suffering, you don't have to suffer forever. And we want to shorten that period as much as we possibly can. We want you feeling better as soon as we possibly can, because these issues can have long-term effects that are very unpleasant, and short-term effects that are equally unpleasant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you don't need to be suffering in silence. Yeah. Summer, you kick it off. Tell us a little more about, like, what is a food allergy? What is that setting apart from everything else?
Good question, Alicia. Thanks. Food allergies. These are reactions that affect the immune system. They're immediate and they're potentially dangerous. So a food allergy is a true immune response involving IgE antibodies. The body identifies a food as a threat, and that triggers an immune response, sometimes a very intense one like anaphylaxis, and which can be life-threatening. The way it works is that IgE antibodies bind to an allergen. When this happens, it triggers the release of histamine and inflammatory mediators, and this is what causes the reaction. And it's an immediate reaction. Now, that's a really, really important thing that distinguishes this from a food intolerance or a sensitivity. If it's a true food allergy, it has a rapid onset, usually minutes to within a couple hours. You may notice that you have symptoms such as hives, swelling, vomiting, difficulty breathing, or anaphylaxis. Some of the common foods that create or result in a food allergy are milks, eggs, peanuts, tree nuts, wheat, soy, shellfish, other fish. And they're all very, very common. These are what we see a lot, or even when you're on the airplane. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the announcement, like there's someone with a peanut allergy, so no nuts are being served on the flight.
Okay, but did you guys know that peanut allergies are not airborne?
No.
Yeah. So that is a bogus fear that people have.
Yeah,
however,
it's a phobia almost that comes with food allergies.
Yeah, but and Alicia, correct me if I'm wrong, because I feel like you know a little bit about this, but shellfish, on the other hand, is a one.
Yes.
So, like, if you have a shellfish allergy, you do not want to go to, like, crab restaurant.
Basically, don't want to go to any restaurant that actually serves it on the menu, because if it's in the space and the juice is airborne or any vapors are airborne, like, so say, for example, for our wedding, my father is allergic to shellfish. We had to clearly state, like, no shrimp, no lobster, no crab, nothing. And, like, really make it clear to them that, like, we can have other fish, just not shellfish, because it could kill my father.
So some of the tests that are available to determine if someone has a food allergy are skin prick testing, a blood test, specifically the IgE test, and an oral food challenge. So that's the gold standard. So Alicia, tell us a little bit about what the oral food challenge is.
So basically, it's in a controlled medical environment where they actually feed you a small amount of whatever the supposed allergen is, and they have an EpiPen ready. It's actually freaking terrifying. I would say usually the prick test is, like, more common, but it's the way that we actually know if someone is truly allergic, if they go into, like, anaphylaxis or hives or something like that.
If they die,
that's the only way to truly identify it. But it's terrifying that they would put somebody into, like. Yeah, but it's usually such a small amount that they're only trying to produce. And the one thing I will add for allergies, so this is a fun fact for some people that have food allergies that are like, oh, it's just minor. They can get worse. They can get worse or better when you age. So for some people, continual exposure to the allergen can actually make the food allergy reaction worse. So say, for example, I don't know why I keep going back to my dad, but my dad. So it used to be that it was just an oral reaction and then it was hives. Then it slowly turned into like his throat starting to swell. And then it's like full blown anaphylaxis now. So every single time he was accidentally exposed, it was getting worse and worse and worse. For some people, they can have a food allergy as a child and they can grow out of the food allergy. I would say like it is worthwhile. Like if you were tested as a child allergic to something, it is good to get it reevaluated as an adult. But still, like it's weird how it can change in the body from like an immune response standpoint. Yeah. Tara, you were tested as a kid, right? For food allergy?
I was. So I have two thoughts on this one. I did the skin prick test as a kid, and it was actually really cool. They basically draw a grid on your back and then prick you with little bits of different allergens or potential allergens, and they wait to see which ones you react to. And then there's like a next level test, and they basically like take the ones that you did react to, and then they do a more intense test where they actually like put a little bubble under your skin with a needle with the allergen and wait for that to react. And that's what they used to figure out what they were going to put in my allergy shots. And I got allergy shots for, I don't know, however long you get them. It was a long time. It was like they start you off with like every week, I want to say, and then it was like every other week and then once a month, and they kind of like go from there. And then it's supposed to help reduce your allergies. I still have allergies, so I don't know how much it helped, but I'm sure it helped a little. But with the oral food challenge, so when I was doing my clinical rotations, I rotated through pediatric allergy. And I was there for a lot of these oral food challenges, and parents will bring their kids in like actually, once a year, every couple of years to retest to see if they're still allergic to things like nuts. Nuts is such a common one. I feel like that's the one that I saw most often. And the test takes forever. Like it takes hours because they give you a teeny tiny amount and then they give the kid toys to play with and they just watch them for any reaction, but then they increase and they give them a little bit more and then a little bit more depending on if they have a reaction or not. And you're there like all day long. It's not a fun test. But that was a really interesting experience, kind of being there for that and seeing what these parents have to go through.
Wow. What were you the most allergic to?
Oh my gosh. My allergies are so general. Trees. I'm allergic to olive trees, but I can eat olives. Dust, grass. Like I'm allergic to like
don't go outside. Tara.
Yeah. I can relate to that. This is my life too.
It's funny because like my sport is like a mountain sport. Like but whatever.
Lots of antihistamines just before you go.
Yeah. I don't take anything. I just raw dog it.
Wow. You're better than I take antihistamines every day because I'm allergic to the inside and the outside.
Yeah. Maybe the allergy shots helped. Maybe that's why I can do that. Who knows?
Like I know my brother went through allergy shots when he was younger too. And he's also like long distance runner and he's now fine as an adult and doesn't take anything.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely like when I'm running, my eyes just pour water. It's like, I look like I'm sobbing. It's ridiculous. It's actually really annoying.
But imagine if you didn't have the shots. Maybe your nose would have been so congested you couldn't even continue running. Yeah. So who knows? A very minor crying.
Who knows? Yeah. I mean, I can't wear makeup when I run, but who cares anyway, right?
Maybe you're just sad that you're running.
Yeah, maybe I don't.
Oh, sorry. That's me. Sorry. I get sad when I run.
There is a shirt that says crying and running, and I kind of want it.
You need it. Mm-hmm. So the key takeaway, just to circle back about food allergies, is that they are not subtle. All right. These are immediate and can be life-threatening. So if you find that all of a sudden you're struggling to breathe, if you're having immediate reaction right after you've eaten, don't wait. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. Get yourself some care and take it seriously.
On the contrary note, food intolerances are not immune regulated, and they are not the same as a food allergy. Let's emphasize that. It is a digestive response. It is not an immune response. I think contrary to some people's belief, I was going to add one note in there that celiac disease, I think a lot of people clump it as an intolerance. Gluten intolerance is actually more of an allergy because it is an immune regulative response. It is separate from, it's actually a separate pathway from, but it's a shameless plug for all the people with celiac disease out there. It's more of an allergy. So when you are out, it's not an immediate allergy response. It's usually a little bit more delayed than a traditional allergy. It's 2+ hours, but good things to talk about. Anyways, going back to food intolerances. So the key difference is, yes, it's digestive based. It is usually caused by an enzyme deficiency. So the most common one we see is lactose intolerance. For most of the world's population, we don't produce lactase enzyme after the age of 3 years old. Different culture groups around the world can still produce. It is very much dose dependent on that sense. It is also caused by poor digestion absorption. So when digestion is incomplete, bigger food particles actually slip through and trigger kind of like a reaction in the body that shouldn't happen. And then you also can have a reaction to a compound in a food where it is actually like you have a response that is driven by a specific protein, like casein in milk can be something that you're intolerant to. It could also be something like a hard to digest carbohydrate. So we talk about our FODMAPs in the world of IBS and food intolerances a lot, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But that's probably some of the most common food intolerances that I personally see in my practice are to FODMAPs, so fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols for anyone that wants to know what that stands for. But basically a grouping of carbs that are found in commonly gluten-containing grains, lactose, certain fruits and vegetables that can make your gut feel like poop. Just pun intended. And there can also be naturally occurring or added chemicals that people don't talk about. And we've talked a lot about this in previous episodes with like food preservatives, colorants, food additives. We've talked a lot about the gums that are a big one for a lot of people. We talked about some other ingredients like the sugar alcohols that could be added to stuff that a lot of people have issues with. And the big thing with intolerances is usually it's a slower onset. It's not right away. You have a meal with lots of FODMAPs or you have a meal with dairy, it's going to be potentially a few hours later. And usually it's dose dependent. So say lactose intolerance, most common, it's like you have a piece of cheese, you're going to be okay. But then maybe you go and you have gelato, and then maybe you have some yogurt, maybe you have some milk, and it snowballs, and that larger amount will trigger the lactose intolerance. But if you just had a small amount, generally you'll be okay. So symptoms that we see commonly with food intolerances: bloating, gas, diarrhea, and upset stomach. Whoops, Pepto-Bismol. So those are all the things. For some individuals, I have seen upper GI symptoms as well with some food intolerances. So I have seen like some acid reflux-like symptoms with some food intolerances. And the big thing is it's usually you can tolerate a small amount. We've talked about the lactose intolerance and the FODMAP sensitivity. For other people, it can even be something as simple as like caffeine sensitivity, which none of us have because we are all here with coffee today.
Cheers.
Woohoo.
Salut.
Salute.
I will say the delayed onset symptoms definitely resonate because I always talk about my issue with oats and the dose response as well. So if I have like a bowl of oatmeal, which I do not do anymore, a few hours later, like by evening time, by dinner time, it's bad news. Like I am bloated. I am
the
gassy.
First time I ever met Tara, it was funny because the first day she was sitting there and she's like, man, my stomach hurts real bad. I had a bowl of oatmeal this morning. My first impression of Tara in person, she's telling me about her stomach and her oatmeal issues.
Yeah, I was like, I made a mistake today. That was when I was putting it together because I never had a problem with oats before. It's something that came later. And it takes a few hours to kick in and then it's just bad news. Like it's horrible. It's so painful. It's uncomfortable, but I can have like a small oatmeal cookie and be fine. So like dose does matter with that stuff.
And it can change. That's the thing. It's like you're telling me, hey, you never used to have issues with oats and now you have issues. And I know even for myself, my family is so baffled because I have been riddled with food intolerances for a very long time, since the celiac disease stuff. Like I started started with lactose intolerance, and then figured out like I had a bunch of sensitivities to like pretty much all vegetables and all fruit. I couldn't have it all. And then like my gut got a little better, and then my sensitivity changed. And that's the thing with food intolerances. It can shift as you age. You can develop new food intolerances. Other food intolerances can go away. And even your gut health in terms of like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which we can go into in other episodes, can cause different food sensitivities and intolerances as well. One thing that I didn't touch on there too can be high fat intolerance too, which is more linked to some of your like lipase enzymes, or like if you have any issues with like your gallbladder, which can be a food intolerance as well, just the issues with like breakdown of fat.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that with people that I've worked with, especially people that have had their gallbladder removed. Let's talk about sensitivities. Sensitivities are the funny gray area where I feel like sometimes people just throw out the word sensitivity because they're like, I think this food bothers me, so I'm just going to say I have a sensitivity to it. And that's kind of what the term is for. It's like, it's not well defined medically. It's similar to intolerance in that it's often delayed, but sometimes more so, like hours to days. And the symptoms are a little bit less obvious. Some people talk about leaky gut as being related to food sensitivities, which is another kind of like buzzword, non-scientific term, and sometimes a red flag if you hear people using that term. The symptoms of sensitivities are also very mixed because it's not super well defined, but they can be things that feel a little bit more ambiguous. Like you may get headaches, you may get fatigue, brain fog, sometimes GI discomfort. I always think of gluten sensitivity when I think of the headaches and the brain fog, because that's the most common complaint that I hear people talk about when they say, I think I'm sensitive to gluten. I get headaches when I eat it. I get brain fog. I feel bloated. I feel tired. I feel fatigued. So that's the one that I hear about often. There is an important distinction here. There is not a clear validated biomarker or test for this. So if a practitioner is telling you, we're going to do a food sensitivity test, just know that that is not a validated test. There is no validated test for food sensitivities. We often identify food sensitivities more through patterns and elimination. So it's a little bit of trial and error, to be honest. Like, let's try cutting out oats and see if you feel better, or whatever it may be for you, and identifying kind of like patterns of what foods make you feel not great and what foods don't have that effect on you. So food sensitivities they're real, they exist. We're definitely not saying that food sensitivities are not a thing. They very much are a thing. They're just really hard to define in terms of the science and putting our finger on exactly how to define them, what they are, and testing for them.
I want to open up just a little bit of a can of worms discussion. So the gluten sensitivity.
Yeah, I saw your face. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. I always ask people, I'm like, is it actually the gluten itself, or is it the products that we're having it in? Because I find that for a lot of people, it's more of like a simple, like high glycemic, quick digesting, that like, are they actually sensitive to gluten, or is it a blood sugar response that we're seeing?
Pasta.
Like pasta, having a massive pasta meal and feeling like really lethargic and brain fog and saying they have a gluten sensitivity. Is it actually the gluten, or is it that your blood sugars are just going berserk after? I would say, like, if your stomach is hurting too, totally. And I'm not putting down people that are gluten sensitive, because there is people that have non-celiac gluten intolerance and gluten sensitivities. But I always cringe a little bit when I hear that, because I want to open up the floor and like, is it even that like maybe the product is a little bit more processed too, in the sense of like, is it that we're reacting to something that is just not the best for your body, and that it's, yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know. How do you both feel in that sense when someone is like, I get brain fog from gluten?
For me, I like to dig a little bit deeper and ask what specific foods we're talking about and what they've felt and when. And that gives us a little bit of a clue. Sometimes I will have the conversation that you basically were just describing, where it's like, well, it seems like these foods that have gluten in them don't bother you, but these foods that have gluten in them do bother you. So that might be an indicator that it's not the gluten, it's the food.
Like they're fine with sourdough bread,
mm-hmm.
but they can't have white bread. And I'm like, They can have whole wheat bread, but they can't have white bread.
Right. Yeah. So there's like some key indicators there. And then I do have some people who like any gluten, it's like they don't feel great. They have it, and it's like, okay, we're for sure going to avoid this. And there's also other things that make it more likely that they might not be responding well to gluten. Like if they have Hashimoto's and they talk about like gluten doesn't make me feel good, then it's like, okay, well, that is very much something that is common with people who have Hashimoto's. So it's likely that you have an issue with gluten, and we should probably avoid it if it makes you feel like crap.
Hashimoto's, autism, some ADHD, which is kind of controversial, but there's a little bit of body of evidence with that. And then the last one is, oh my gosh, it's slipping my brain right now, epilepsy, that we see like the keto diet being used, but we also see like potential gluten sensitivity as well. So there's numerous. Endometriosis is the other one. They're finding emerging evidence in endometriosis treatment that going gluten-free, that there could actually be like true gluten sensitivity happening with endometriosis, especially if the endometrial tissue is spread within the colon and the digestive system.
Not carbohydrate related.
No, it's not carbohydrate related. It's gluten specific. Gluten and dairy, they're finding some new, it's in its infancy in terms of the evidence, but there is a lot of clients that I see that it can have a positive effect on.
Summer, what have you seen with people and gluten issues?
I would say it's really similar to what you both have already said. Like, honestly, we always want to dig a little deeper when I hear, that people have a sensitivity to gluten. And also I hate to say it, and then you never want to discount or not believe what a client is telling you, but it's such a buzzword right now. It's such the cool thing, not cool thing, that's not fair. It's such the popular thing that so many people, quote unquote, have right now or are experiencing. So it's very important, again, when something is advertised on social media all the time, it's hard not to relate to that and think that could be what I have. But the reason I was smiling and laughing before was when you read those symptoms, thinking about who I work with a lot, what does headache, fatigue, brain fog, GI discomfort all say? Or are all symptoms of
perimenopause? Yeah.
Perimenopause. I have every single one of those, and this girl can put away some pasta. All right? I mean, a lot of pasta. So I was just laughing. I know it's not the same thing, but all I would say to our people listening is just think too and be open that it may not be that. And that this is, again, a great opportunity to work with a dietitian to really, really dig deeper and find out what actually is causing this discomfort.
Yeah.
You don't need to suffer. And this is what we do.
You don't have to cut out foods that you love just because you heard on the internet that might be something that may be making you sick.
Dude, one of the things that really made me want to just pull my hair out, I saw this, it's probably been years now, but I think it's well known that I have beef with Mark Hyman. I think he's an idiot. And I will be very public about that. He's a fool, a total clown. But I saw a video of Mark Hyman where he said flat out, as though it was a hard fact, that gluten is inflammatory. Like, that was the sentence. Gluten is inflammatory. As though gluten is inflammatory for every human on this planet. And that really pissed me off because that kind of fear-mongering blanket statement nutrition stuff is just toxic in this world. It's not constructive. It's not positive. If you're seeing stuff like that online and you're basing your behavior on it, that's not great. We need to sift through those blanket statements, those hardcore things that some people are saying, and make sure that we are doing what's best for us as an individual, because gluten is not inflammatory for every person. That is absolutely not true.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And again, we talked about this in our very first episode, is how to kind of wade through the bullshit of what's out there. And fear mongering and blanket statements is one of those very, very common ways that you can identify when something may not be completely accurate. And again, I invite everybody to go ahead and have a listen if you haven't already heard episode 1. But truly, like, dig a little deeper. We just have to be our own advocates for our health. And this is the time you ask questions of true professionals and experts in those fields, your dietitians, your GI doctors, things like that. I'm not trying to poo-poo on anybody else's careers, but again, there are some great naturopaths out there, but there are also, ones who don't have a degree in these things, in these fields, and they're 100%. Not experts.
Yeah. And like, I would say not all naturopaths are taught the same in terms of the same curriculum and what they're taught. I know I had a colleague whose wife was going through school to become a naturopath, and she ended up changing colleges after the first month of going to her first naturopathic college, because she was told in her first week, and she didn't believe with this, that everyone should cut out. So 90 to 95% of the patients that walk through the door should have gluten and dairy removed from their diet, because that will solve all their health problems.
Obviously.
And so she changed actually her schooling, because she thought it was just like a load of crap. And there wasn't a lot of like science that was actually happening, because there is some science involved with good naturopathic colleges. But yeah. Well, let's dive back into the food sensitivity discussion, talking about food sensitivity testing. So we talked about IgE when we talked about food allergies. I think people often get this confused with IgG, which is food sensitivities. And that's what they're testing with food sensitivity testing. Let's talk about what they're claiming first before we get into what the test actually does. So with IgG testing, they're kind of saying that they're going to measure your sensitivity to 90 to 100 different foods, that's a lot of different foods. And a lot of times with these tests, you get this extensive report, which is like 6, 8, 10 pages long. And they're saying remove any high IgG foods from your diet. So if you have any of these foods that come up, if you have IBS and migraines and inflammation and fatigue and GI issues, and you should remove your IgG and it will cure all your problems. But let's talk about what the tests are actually measuring. They're measuring exposure to a food, not intolerance. IgG antibodies indicate that your body has seen this food before. We have eaten this food before, and your immune system recognizes that you've seen this food before. Higher IgG, not IgE, IgG, especially IgG4, is often associated with tolerance. So your ability to your body to actually tolerate the food, not sensitivity. They're often telling you, these tests are just saying, hey, you eat yogurt every day. Cool, that's what you're eating. Oh, you eat rice every day. Cool. Not that those foods are actually harming you. So like breaking that test down, basically it's saying that like how it works is our blood is exposed to a food antigen. So an antigen is a protein present in food that is recognized by our immune system. So the results are graded based on your binding intensity with the IgG antibody. The problem with kind of like how these results are reported is it lists foods instead of proteins that are in the foods themselves. And it often will incorporate all the foods you're eating often. And it doesn't actually talk about like what reaction you're getting. So a lot of times you get this false positive trap that like, hey, I'm eating oatmeal or I'm eating yogurt. You're going to have more IgG to those foods. And then like you're going to end up thinking that I have to then go and remove that food that I'm eating on a regular basis. Like I can think of one client in particular, like she's a super high stress individual and she got her food sensitivity testing done and her result had 50 foods. 50 of the 90 were high IgG.
So wouldn't that mean that she has just a good varied diet? She eats lots of different foods?
100%.
Wow.
And some individuals like will test more high if there's potentially some stress going on in their body too. There's an interaction there between stress and exposure, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're intolerant to that food. And I felt so bad. She came to the appointment with me in tears, in absolutely bawling, because she thought she had to take out all of these foods that she was such pivotal parts of her diet.
Can you imagine having to remove 50 foods from your diet?
And 50 common foods. Like it was like rice. Rice she was told to remove. She was told to remove vanilla extract. She was told she couldn't eat cinnamon. She couldn't have a lemon or a lime. Bananas things. And the thing is, she was dealing with a lot of like digestive symptoms. So she thought that was what she had to do. These tests create a problem because they're telling you to eliminate all these foods. And I personally think that they create a lot of fear mongering around food. And these massive like allergy and food intolerance organizations don't actually recommend these tests at all. They are not backed by science. They are not diagnostic. They're not validated. They are not meant to identify allergy, intolerance, or sensitivity. An antibody does not equal disease.
That's so interesting. It's mind-blowing that it's targeted and marketed as something to determine why you don't feel good when all it is just telling you that you've been eating it. Mm-hmm. That's so crazy. So why do people feel better after following an IgG-based diet or like cutting foods out from the test results? And some people do feel better, but the question is why? Now, first of all, and one thing to think about is they've cleaned up their diet. So by removing some of the things that were mentioned, such as things that are in ultra-processed foods, excess sugar, large sugar foods like gluten or dairy for some, that can actually make you feel better. So it's not necessarily removing that food in itself, but removing other things that are in the food or around that meal that are causing the discomfort or the irritability of the bowels or whatever it is. Secondly, having an increased awareness to what foods may be better for you. So people are eating more mindfully, choosing maybe more nutrient-dense foods, being a little bit more structured with their meals. Maybe it's avoiding takeout more often, things like that. Fast food, or maybe it's simply decreasing the amount of some of those things or a meal altogether that has some things that are making you not feel well. The other thing that we think of, what? What did I do?
You didn't do anything. I just like inhaled weird and like made like a kind of a pig sound.
I didn't hear it at all.
And I didn't hear it. In my mind, I was like, they totally heard that. And I was like looking for your faces to like make a face, but you didn't. And then I just like couldn't keep it together.
Okay, so every time I see your face, I'm like, what did I say wrong? What did I do?
No,
this is why I go to therapy.
I literally was like,
is that what your pig noise sounds like?
I don't know, but yeah.
Circling back. So another reason people feel better after following these types of diets is a placebo effect. So there's a strong buy-in when you pay a lot of money for an expensive test and all of a sudden you just want to feel better. So by following some of these recommendations, you feel better because you've paid a lot of money and you're doing the things, right? We've all done it with different products. I have clients who literally work out with me once every 2 or 3 weeks and have told me that after 1 week, they can see that their body is completely changed. They feel so much better. And they probably do feel a whole lot better because they're doing something good for themselves.
Wow, Summer, but it's because you're that good.
I mean,
you're amazing, Summer. Come on, give yourself that credit.
I do have that ability to change a full body, not my own, but anybody else's in one session. Hire me now.
Yeah. And that'll be $1,000 for every 30 minutes.
Obviously. You should see the gym I have. It is amazing. It's amazing. And I can do this online too. One session, body composition change.
Yep. Total body recomp.
But in reality, they might be changing some other things too without being mindful of what other changes they're making unconsciously.
What are you trying to say?
Yeah.
It's me.
It's 100% the one session with Summer.
The key point is that people may feel better, but it doesn't mean the test identified the problem. They had one session with me. No, the truth is, honestly, we can all feel better just by marketing and by believing in ourselves and changing other things, but it may not be the result of the test.
Yeah. And feeling better is great. But I will say, to your point, though, that you made earlier, about just cleaning up the diet, that's usually what I start with people when they're having GI issues that could be intolerance or sensitivity. Obviously, with asking them 100 questions first, but oftentimes the first step is like, well, let's just look at your normal daily intake and see if we can clean that up first. And a lot of times that's all we need to do. Like, we just need to start eating less Domino's and less French fries and, you know, those maybe less Pop-Tarts, you know, those types of things. And oftentimes people just feel incredibly better just from making that simple change, and we don't need to do anything dramatic. But on the note of actual elimination diets, there are some evidence-based approaches that can help in these types of scenarios outside of just cleaning up the diet, because that is sometimes not enough. Regarding an evidence-based approach, you can remove the suspected foods for a few weeks. Usually it's 2 to 6 weeks. Then monitor the symptoms and then reintroduce systematically. And this is a very scientific process. It's not done in a sloppy way, which I see oftentimes what ends up happening with people is they'll start like removing certain foods from their diet, but they'll also start supplementing with new things. We need to be very like purists when we're doing this process so that we can clearly identify what the problem food is, and then we know what to keep out of the diet moving forward. The low FODMAP diet is probably one of the most well-known and well-studied diets that is mostly for people who have inflammatory bowel conditions, primarily IBS. I've worked with lots of people through this process and this diet and have seen amazing results with it. I mean, it's really, really cool. People go from having diarrhea literally every day to feeling so much better. And it's life-changing. And it's not forever. Like, I think that's one of the things that people get confused about with the low FODMAP diet. They think, oh my God, I have to be on this crazy elimination diet for the rest of my life. And that is absolutely not the case.
And don't wait to reach out to a dietitian if a doctor has told you to go low FODMAP. I've had a number of clients, I think at least 5 or 10 that have come to me after a doctor has told them to go low FODMAP, and they try low FODMAP on their own and they get stuck there because they don't know how to reintroduce, and they feel like they have no variety. And there's tons of variety that you can still have within the low FODMAP diet.
Yeah. It's also really overwhelming. Like,
exactly.
I've had people, friends of mine who are not my clients, be recommended that, and they don't even know where to begin. It's so overwhelming, and it seems like such a big ask to cut out so many foods at once. Reach out.
Yeah.
Get some help.
We have so many tools and resources and meal plans and things to make it as easy as we possibly can. It's not going to be fun. Like, it's always going to be a challenge, but when you have support and tools and recipe ideas, there's even an app that's really helpful with identifying what foods are low in FODMAP and high in FODMAPs. There's a million things out there to make it easier for you.
It's a beautiful app. It's a beautiful app. Just shameless plug for the Monash app. Yeah. It is great. And then you can track your symptoms and stuff in there too, so you can kind of actually like, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really cool. Monash is great, and there's lots of good resources there, and they are science-based.
Yes.
There's also other types of elimination diets outside of the low FODMAP diet, which tends to be kind of I would say more extreme of some of the others. Just eliminating dairy, for example, or doing a gluten trial, for example, could be ways to modify the diet and see how your body responds. These things need to be done in a structured format. Like I mentioned, they are temporary. It's not like you have to do it forever. This is an experiment. We are being scientists. And then the reintroduction phases are usually essential in this process. And this is where a lot of people tend to drop off. And it's your life. Like you can kind of choose what you want to do. I do find that with like low FODMAP, for example, you go completely low FODMAP in the beginning, and then you gradually reintroduce the different FODMAPs. It's a very like structured process. And a lot of people that I work with do the low FODMAP diet, and they feel so freaking good that they're like, cool, I'm better now. My system has calmed down. Like, I just want to use this as something that I can come back to next time I have a flare up. And that's okay. You can do it that way. It's not ideal because you haven't identified what specifically bothers you, though. So like, if you do the reintroduction and you identify, okay, this particular group of FODMAPs is the issue for me, but these ones aren't, then you're actually liberalizing your diet a lot. So the next time that you do have to do low FODMAP because of a flare-up, you have a lot more foods that you can work with than you would otherwise. So, your body, your choice, right? But that is kind of like the technical way to do it. And there are benefits to doing it in the way that it's designed to be done. The goal really isn't to eliminate these foods forever. It's to understand what your tolerance is so that you have agency over your nutrition, your diet, how your body feels, and you're able to reduce some of that inflammation that can occur from consuming foods that your body just doesn't really like very much. So let's take it away. Food allergies are an immune response. They are serious. They are also testable. You can go get a food allergy test and get a clear answer whether you do or do not have a food allergy. That's often the first step for people who are having issues. Intolerances are digestive issues, and they're very dose dependent. Sensitivities are where things are kind of a gray area. They're harder to define, but they are definitely very real, and we don't want to discount sensitivities because they do exist and you might have one. IgG testing is absolutely not diagnostic. It's not recommended, and oftentimes it leads to unnecessary restriction. Especially, I always think about people who are already prone to over restriction. This can be a really harmful thing for them. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope this provided some clarity for you. And if you feel like you may be experiencing some sensitivities, intolerances, or allergies, that is a great reason to reach out to one of us so that we can help you get your system under control, guide you on some tests to ask your doctor for, and we can all collaborate on your care. Thank you for tuning in, and we will chat with you next time.